Hi everyone, Summer with Astariosen, and this is the fourth week and last week of our Fae work, Finding the Fae. Oh my gosh, it has been such a interesting journey so far. I'm surprised I managed to make 2 videos every single week and had the time to do that. And it's been absolutely crazy for me on my end. Like, my videos have been way longer than my normal videos, and I mean, I'm really proud of all the work that everybody's doing, including myself, you know? So this week, we are going to do, this first video is about putting it into practice, and the second video is going to be a live, hopefully, Q&A on Thursday. So this will be a really short video, actually. And yes, I have already released in my shorts the winner of the Good Fairies, Bad Fairies book. So it's in my shorts videos, but I will also leave the name down in the comments. So just in case the person doesn't see it. So I've already announced the winner. Please, please, please email me as soon as you can. All right, so let's put this into practice. First up, we've got some journaling prompts, and one of the main journaling prompts, and I'll leave the journaling prompts in the description as well as our tarot spread for this week. But one of the main journaling prompts questions that I really hope you guys will focus on is how different you see the Fae now compared to what you did when you first started this journey with me. It may have not have changed at all, and that's perfectly fine. It might have changed only a little bit, also perfectly fine. But seeing where we come from and where we're going and how far we've taken something is a really impressive way to see how we're dealing with ourselves and things we feel and our spiritual stuff, right? Because fairy practice my spirituality. So what I wanted to do also is I wanted to give you guys practical ways you could include anything fairy into any kind of practice. It doesn't matter if you're a witch. It doesn't matter if you're just nature-based. It doesn't matter if you're just plain pagan or if you're Christian or what it is. It does not, absolutely does not matter. As a matter of fact, one of the earliest witches on record to work with Fae is Biddy Early in the Celtic lore. And I will leave a link down to Biddy, information about Biddy Early in the description as well. But from my understanding, this lady worked with the Fae. She was taught by the Fae. It's even claimed that she went away with the fairies for a while to learn from them, and she was put on trial. I don't think they found her guilty. Nobody would testify against her, which is a really interesting thing, right? Really interesting thing. It could be because of the respect and stuff like that. Now, I don't know a whole lot about Biddy Early. This is just information that I've gleaned over some of my reading materials and some of the research that I've done. I have not actually done any work on Biddy Early, so just be aware of that. So if you want to know more, you need to do some work on that on your own. So there's your homework. Find out more about Biddy Early. But she was a witch who practiced with the Fae, healing with the Fae and stuff like that. She even had like a blue bottle that she used for her spell work and stuff like that. Super cool. Anyways, go look it up. It's crazy cool. Anyways, so putting it into practice, because it really doesn't matter what kind of practice you have. You can add Fae to it at any given time, even if you're not sure you want to have a full-on connection with them. Okay, so here are 7 ways you can put Fae work into any practice. Okay, and I wrote them down so that I could keep track of where I'm at. I do a lot of these, but I do way more too. Okay, so the first one I'm going to talk about is, there's actually one of the earliest stories, Paracelsus, I think, and I will leave a link to that down in the description as well. But he talked about 4 elementals that are considered in the Fae realm, right? And one of them happens to be gnomes and sylphs and salamanders, right? So you can actually add those elementals to your ritual work, to your witchcraft, to your altar stuff, to your any kind of spiritual stuff that you're doing, because we do work with elementals a lot of the time, right? We call in wind and we call in fire and we call in earth and we call in water, and it's not that hard to request it of the Fae instead of just the simple elements. You can request it of the gnomes right in your gardens. Do charms and little trinkets that you use in your ritual practice, on your altars, you carry on your actual body. And they can be like hag stones, they could be sigils that you incorporate the Fae into. And I do know hag stones also go a lot with witchery too. So, but they could be used for fairy work as well. So it's kind of like double use, right? You can actually do crafting with anything natural. Go outside, find something to do any kind of crafting with, whether it be a rock, a stick, a pine cone, something found, a feather that you can add to your altar, whatever. Just leave an offering behind for having been able to find this found object, right? And with the intent that it's Fae related. You can also work with folklore. So there's a lot of fairy folklore out there, and you can take any of it and start applying it to different parts of your practice. You can learn a story, just one single story that just you kind of like resonate with. I mean, it could be because you lost something or someone. It could be because you just really feel strongly with that folklore kind of story and stuff like that. And then you just apply it to altar work, you know, in honor of that folklore story, in honor of that person who gave their oral tradition of this story, of their family, of whatever they experienced, and now it's in this written form, right? And now you have it to acknowledge and you have it to use in whatever way you see fit. Even just learning it is enough to apply to your practice because you're learning something new. You're interpreting something, you're taking something in, and that can any kind of spiritual practice whatsoever, it works. You can also do fairy guides and meditation, where you can use a fairy guide, if they're willing, of course, in meditation or dream work for help in creating, you know, guardians and protections on your land, in your home, on your person, for people, for traveling. All that kind of stuff can also apply to the Fae. You just have to ask who would be willing to want to participate that with you, right? In meditations and stuff. And then, of course, we've also seen channeling from a lot of people. Channeling and journaling and automatic writing are another way we can get in tune with Fae without having a full-on practice. But we can also apply that channeling to our spiritual work. If we have a question, we could ask the Fae. It doesn't matter what the question's about. We can easily ask the Fae. So those are my 7 ways that you can apply Fae work to any practice. And those are simple ones. I do a lot more than that, but that's because this is my spiritual practice. It's what I focus on, and it's what I've created a relationship on. So let's talk a little bit. Let's go back to the beginning, because in the beginning I did talk a little bit about the fairy fear, so to speak, because there's a lot of fear involving the Fae, right? I do get questions about how to keep them away. I do. And I'm not going to tell you that there's not Fae that kind of just play mean tricks, because there are. Just like there are people who do mean things. Just like there are, you know, other elementals who do unhappy things too. Like, it doesn't matter what you work with. I just want to reiterate, it doesn't matter what you're working with, Fae included. You're going to have both sides of it. You're going to have the good part and the not so great part. And if you want to protect yourself from the parts that you don't want, you need very clear boundaries with any kind of spiritual practice. Those clear boundaries are going to help you more than anything else. And if that clear boundary is iron for you because you're worried about the Fae, then let it be iron. It's okay. I don't see the iron that way, but your belief in it is way more important than how I view it. Okay? If salt is a thing for you, or eggshells for protection, or scissors, because even in the folklore, if you put scissors above like a baby's crib or underneath the baby's crib to keep change from them using changelings, right? Or if you want to walk around and you're worried about the Fae, you can turn clothes inside out, which is a discouragement for the fairy. I'm not exactly sure why, but it's in a lot of the folklore. They don't tell you why it's there. It's kind of like left up for you to figure that out, right? There's interpretation there. So if you want to interpret why in the comments, please feel free. Why do you think turning clothes inside out would deter a fairy? And then there's bread. Some people put bread in their pockets to keep the Fae away. I don't understand that one at all. Like, I don't understand it whatsoever. I'm not really sure why bread would be there, but it is in some of the folklore. And again, I do believe that if you just simply ask for them not to be there, they will generally go away. Now, just like anything like spiritual, you might get not so nice ones, right? Who don't want to go away, and so you have to try a little harder to help them go away, like you would a ghost or some kind of supernatural being who just kind of wants to cause some havoc in your life. So you'll have to find ways around that if you do come into contact with a fae like that. But here's the thing. The fae aren't out there, worrying about what you're doing with your life. Not generally. You're a small section of a world that they're bumping up against, and you're not their main focus. They have their own agenda, they have their own lifestyles, they have their own hierarchy, they have their own everything, their own life, their own everything. So they're not worrying about what we're doing as humans in general. Even Morgan Daimler talks about this. It's not like they're all consumed by what humans are doing. There's just curious ones, and there's ones you can work with, and there's ones you can't, and there's some that just are bored and want to cause some havoc. I mean, you're gonna find it all, just like you do in anything else. Okay? There is so much out there for you to even learn about the Fae still. All of the stuff that I've given you are just skims, just surface level stuff of things that I found on my own. And a fairy practice is not for everybody. It's also extremely lonely. There's not a lot of people out here going, hey, I practice fairy spirituality. A lot of people are way more into other spiritual aspects, witchcraft or hedge witchery or garden stuff and whatnot. And I'm just over here playing with fairies all the time and talking about fairies and reading fairy folklore and all that stuff. And I'm not an academic, okay? I'm not like a professor. I don't have a PhD in any of this. I'm not a folklorist or anything like this. I'm doing my own research. I'm doing my own practice. I'm creating this as I go because there isn't anything out there specifically for this. Now, there's a fairy faith, of course, but it's on the down low in Ireland and stuff like that. And there is in the 80s, I think, 70s or 80s, there was a Wicca fairy faith thing that was going on. That is also not something I'm doing. That is more traditional religious work that I am not doing. Mine is based on folklore and applying my relationship with the Fae to my everyday life and honoring the things that I say that I'm going to do. And I do believe everything happens for a reason, including my connections with the Fae. But I'm coming up with this as I go because it's not like there's a Bible out there that you could study and make all these things, happen. And on top of that, I mean, like some of the things that go with Fae work, if you were to just boil that down into one sacred text, right, that you could just read and bring up all this stuff over like you can like a Bible study or something, it would be like constraining the wild fayness that that comes with fairy work, right? Because it's like a wilding. They're not so easily categorized, right? They're not so easily put in human boxes and human concepts and human ideas and stuff like that. So having a singular text that allows for you to have all of this stuff to study from is much harder because a lot of fairy work, a lot of fairy folklore, a lot of fairy tradition was very much orally done and not written down anywhere until the late 1800s. I think the earliest written texts, I think there's some grimoires with elemental beings in them that are fae, would be considered fae if you're a folklorist and you're going back, or you're a witch and you're going back into old grimoires and looking for something that could be fae. The elementals could be that idea of fae work. But really, a lot of this folklore wasn't written down until folklorists and all this fairy work started coming up and the fairy curiosity started weighing in the late 1800s. So it was more oral. And so I'm kind of just going as I can and working through it. And that's even what my Patreon is about, is exploring that path with me. So if you guys want to, I mean, I'm just going with what I can. If you're following a fairy practice or you're wanting to get involved in a fairy practice, please join my Patreon. I'll leave it down in the description. It's going to be in a tagged comment, down in the comment section, a highlighted one, a pinned one. And My idea is to be able to explore fairy work with other like-minded individuals. That's what I want to do. I don't want to just teach you something. I want to interact with you. I want to talk about it. I want to explore it. I have things that I want to do. Like there's I want to take folklore stories and actually apply studies and ways to see it, or why it might be seen that way, or how it works in the fairy life, or how we conceptualize it in our spirituality and stuff like that, in from folklore to real life to fairy agenda, I guess. I want to talk about all of that, and I want to explore that with other people who have fae tendencies like I do. And I'm not gonna lie, it's been really hard to find them, but they're there. And that brings me to my next thing. I am so thankful and so grateful to my first two Patreons, my Patreon members, and I'm going to put them up on the screen here. Thank you so much for joining my Patreon and starting this journey with me. I just started it, so it's only been going for like a month. There isn't like a ton of stuff there yet, but there will be. And I'm working on ways that I'm going to incorporate all of this for people. So if you are interested in joining, please take a look at my Patreon. And again, if you have any questions, please leave them below. The Q&A of Fae, Finding the Fae, is coming up soon. So be on the lookout for that. And I hope you guys have a very great day.